So the next big battle is going to be whether the very wealthiest among us and the biggest corporations begin to start paying their fair share. We should be reducing the deficit by making sure that the wealthy and large corporations just pay their fair share. We're going to continue cutting the deficit and cutting subsidies to big pharma and ensuring wealthy and big corporations begin to pay their fair share of federal taxes.
Remember those? Well, sorry, Mr. President, but new data shows that since the new Trump tax code went into effect, the top 1% have gone from paying 40% of all income tax, which was big enough, to 45%. That's the highest share paid by the rich ever because of the Trump tax code. Joining us now is Russ, Vought, former OMB director and president at Center for Renewing America, and Michael Faulkender, former assistant Treasury Secretary for Economic Policy and chief economist at AFPI and an economics professor at the University of Maryland. Well, I could be kind of mean and talk about his family not paying their fair share, but I'm not going to go there for the moment, guys, because I want to talk about another fib that the president has said, that only the rich benefited from the tax cuts. In fact, we knew way back in 2019 when the data began streaming in, and the New York Times, of all people, reported on it, that the 65% of all taxpayers, and again, this was in the New York Times, 65% of all taxpayers got a tax cut from the Trump law. Only 6% paid more. So I'm just wondering, Russ, Vought, wasn't this actually a blue-collar bonanza?
It was, and at the time you saw every economic group, every demographic was benefiting from the economy that was built as a result of that tax cut, that was built on as a result of that deregulatory agenda. And so the left has to go and essentially put these talking points out, but we know from recent history, because the American people saw those benefits in their pocketbook, that these accusations are just not true.
And Michael, one thing that is almost certain, if the Democrats take the White House and both houses of Congress, there are going to be new taxes. We have the 2025 sunset of most of the tax code that you guys set up under the Trump administration. But they also want things like the wealth tax, where people will actually be taxed on the basis of stuff they have, whether it's stocks or artwork or gold or whatever it is, that increases in value before they've even sold it.
That's right, David. So if we don't do anything about it, everything we did on the personal side in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act will expire in 2025. So that means the doubling of the standard deduction, the increase in marginal rates, everything that made the code more progressive. As Russ said, what we saw was the bulk of the American people, particularly at the lower and middle end of the income distribution, saw reductions in taxes as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That goes away. And not only that, remember, David, in 2019, the Census Bureau came out and said that household income rose $6,000 on a real adjusted basis as a result of the economic plan of the Trump administration. We have the lowest poverty rates and the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. So to argue that these were primarily to the benefit of the wealthy, when in fact government statistics tell us how broadly shared that prosperity was, goes to again demonstrate the nonsense that we're hearing out of this administration.
And Russ, you touched on this, and it's an important point, because more and more the Democrats are losing their base, whether it's black minorities, whether it's the Latino community, as they begin to find out that they were actually doing better under the Trump administration than they have been under the Biden administration.
No doubt about it. They want a safe country. They want a sane country. They want a prosperous economy. They don't want to go and have to pay hundreds of dollars when they go to the grocery store. So at every opportunity, whether from a data point perspective with regard to how they judge this economy, they look at it and they say, look, I was better off under Trump than I am under Biden. Why would I continue to vote for these policies?
Well, what happens, Michael, if, in fact, it's the other side that wins? If Trump not only takes over the White House, but Republicans take over both houses of Congress, is it conceivable that we could have some kind of new tax code? The one thing you guys didn't do, you did a lot, But you didn't do a lot about simplifying the tax code for you. There may be around the edges, but I mean a big simplification, like a flat tax, the one that Steve Forbes, everybody pay the same. And we could, instead of supersizing the IRS, we could downsize the IRS. We wouldn't be talking about supersizing it, just turn it into a collection agency. What about something like that?
That's right, David. So we made a down payment on that with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, because when you double the standard deduction, it means that a much larger portion of the American people actually don't have to itemize, don't have to go through the complexity. It's just take the amount of income, apply the standard deduction, and then apply the rate structure. That allows us to get people off of the addiction to many of these special interest breaks and enables us to move towards greater fairness and reduce a lot of these deductions that create all the complexity in the code. If we could get it down to, as Secretary Mnuchin discussed, where people could file their taxes on a postcard, that's eventually the objective, but we've got to do it sequentially.
Well, meanwhile, Russ, the spending spree, speaking of addictions, this administration is particularly addicted to just spending more that they don't have. We now have, I think, annualized, we have a deficit of about $1.6 trillion, and it's growing. The last quarter came in, I think it was something around $530 billion for the last quarter. Where is all that going to lead? I know supply siders very often say, you know, a growing economy can cure everything, but this is a big sickness in our economy right now, isn't it?
It is a huge sickness. The spending that this Washington uniparty is doing right now on an annual basis is not something that you can solve just by growth. Growth is obviously a part of the answer. It's a part of a balanced budget. It's a huge part. But you have to tackle spending. And not only are they not tackling it, they are dramatically worsening it. They're going to pass in March another $1.7 trillion spending bill. We have interest costs going from $350 billion when we left office to they're now $870 billion per year and headed towards $1.6 trillion. That's just interest. That's used to be what we would spend on the deficit. The deficit, we're going to have another $20 trillion added over the next 10 years, and that's using some static assumptions that doesn't even include the cost of extending the tax cuts we've been talking about. Yeah. So our fiscal picture is worsening, and this administration is just making it worse.
Yeah, just to put it in something that people can wrap their head around, Russ, I'm told that by the end of this year, just servicing the debt will cost as much as our spending on the military. Is that right?
That's right.
It's unbelievable. All right, then we have all the regulations. This is the last one for you, Michael. These green energy regulations continue, but it's not just green energy regs. It's all kinds of things. How quickly could a Trump administration turn that around?
Yeah, so we're already getting to work at the America First Policy Institute identifying the regulations that we can remove and start the process of eliminating. As you know, they're trying to get as many through as possible prior to when the Congressional Review Act would still be applicable. And so we're working that if we cannot reverse it through the Congressional Review Act, then let's try to reverse it either through the reconciliation process or by beginning the process of doing it through rulemaking. But we've got to get started on that on day one, and that's why President Trump has called for potentially 100 executive orders to direct the agencies and departments to get to work undoing all the damage that's been done.
I remember back in 1980 that the Heritage Foundation put together a blueprint for the Reagan administration. Sounds like you're getting something like that ready for another Trump administration. I'm glad somebody's working on all that. Russ and Michael, great to see you both. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.